Hey, today the Arrowhead developers relayed information on exactly what the unflinching passive does in terms of stats. Players are upset about the prices in the store menu. There's also an interesting description about the newest armor that I don't think a lot of you are aware of. And there's much more to discuss. If you can't support the channel, please tap the like button below at any point and subscribe with notifications on. The first topic I'd like to bring up in today's video is that the Arrowhead developers relayed information to the support team member. But first, I'd like to give credit to a Reddit user named IDK My Life Is Weird. He asked the support team member if they could reveal any details on exactly what the passive does, and apparently it reduces the recoil surprisingly by 95%, tones down the stagger and camera shakes, and lastly, what was mentioned, I'm not entirely sure what Kayla meant by this, but the passive also reduces the maniacal shooting VO timer from 6 to 5. Again, I have no clue what the last one is referring to. Maybe I'm oblivious about this. If you have any idea as to what it means, I'd like to hear from you in the comments below and let me know what you think. Overall, it's great to know exactly what it does now. I wasn't too sure what it specifically did at the time besides the fact it helps with not flinching. I think it might be better to use the unflinching passive over the engineering kit passive if you're looking for better recoil control, since the engineering kit passive reduces your recoil by only 30%, yet it also increases your grenade count by 2. Now, with that information in mind, as I mentioned, you might want to use the unflinching passive more, considering the recoil is reduced more than the engineering passive. So take that into consideration when you are choosing a passive to reduce your recoil. It's going to be way more beneficial for you knowing exactly which one to choose from. Let's see a visual comparison between the two passives using a high recoil gun like the newest SG-20 Hull, which has a recoil of 120. This way you can get a better idea visually instead of just looking at the stats. It appears there's slightly better recoil on the left, but I'm not entirely sure when looking at the right one if there are any noticeable or any significant differences. But anyway, I hope this information helps out when you decide to choose a passive for reducing your recoil. If you didn't know about this, tap the like button below and let me know your overall thoughts about it. Next up, how about we see what's going on with the prices and exactly why fans are not happy at the high price shop items. I currently don't have an issue with it, and I'll explain why here soon. First, the proof can be seen on Reddit, where a post received 7,000 upvotes with a title that says, "Is it just me, or are the superstore prices getting more and more ridiculous? Also, why no heavy armor?" The comments were interesting to say the least. There's one member that essentially said that the Arrowhead developers knew we were all looking forward to this specific armor, and that's why they did it. Another post implied that the developers did this because the armor that was included in the shop was supposed to be a reward featured in the Truth Enforcer's Warbond. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I for sure cannot confirm this, but Arrowhead typically updates the shop menu items with a new armor and a new passive every time a Warbond is released. So to say that they were saving it for the Warbond might not be true, at least in my opinion. Secondly, Arrowhead has experimented with prices in the past, so I don't think they did this mainly due to the hype surrounding the newest armor and passive. With that being said, I don't have any issues with any of this. The reason being is that if you want to farm for super credits, you absolutely can do that if you have the free time to do so, or if you have the income that you can dispose of. Personally, I'd rather just farm it, and it's not an issue to do so. All you have to do is choose the trivial difficulty, aka level 1 difficulty, and a map of your choice. I prefer a flatter landscape or a map that does not have as many mountains or objects to obstruct your view. This way you can see all the highlighted points of interest, and you can spot these smaller buildings that usually have a crate underneath it that will give you either credits, medals, or a random support weapon. I highly suggest before you dive on a planet to equip the jetpack and the newest booster called Dead Sprint. It will be way easier to farm with a loadout like this so that you can move around and get to the spots quickly. I did this and it only took about 2 minutes or less to explore the entire map. And I got about 50 credits from one planet. Sometimes it can be less, it just depends, but honestly once you do farm up enough, you can purchase the new armor with the newest passive. I did it, and I believe you can too. Yet again, if you have enough time to do so. What do you all think about this? Is it a huge deal that they're experimenting with the pricing, or is it not? Like I've mentioned, I don't have any problem with it considering we can just farm for super credits, and it's still a viable method. Moving along, I have to talk about the latest armor description for the Truth Enforcer's Warbond that I don't believe a lot of you are aware of, or maybe you just don't know what it's referring to. The armor I'm talking about is this one right here, which is the UF-50 Bloodhound. The description says, users are advised to not scratch at the lacquer as the red 20,000 pigment that gives this armor its signature sheen may be correlated with the rapid DNA unspooling. Yeah, this right here is referring to Red 40, which can be found in most food products, and it can actually mess with your DNA without a doubt. Now, I'm not a health freak at all, but I do enjoy working out and eating properly. So, while I can't go into further details on this, it's apparently insanely bad for you. It supposedly contains carcinogens that can give you cancer, which is obviously overall not good for you. But yeah, there's probably some other issues with it. With that small health lesson out of the way, that is really what the Arrowhead developers were referring to, and I didn't expect that at all until I recently read the armor description after creating the video I had uploaded yesterday. With that news aside, there's been a lot of talks about crashing. I've seen comments on my last video and prior ones about how the update has not been too kind for a majority of you out there. There are quite a few posts on Reddit as well that you can see that talks about the game crashing, and I'm not entirely sure if it's mainly a PC problem or if it affects both console and PC. I've experienced the game crashing maybe about 2 months ago, yet I haven't experienced a crash since then. And I suspect it could mainly be a PC related issue unless there's a specific problem with the weapon. Like I've seen the Quasar Cannon brought up in one post claiming the game crashed after using it. So honestly, I can't really determine if there are any game breaking issues with it. But I thought I'd bring this up to see if anyone here has had the game crash recently, and if so, what happened? What weapons did you use? And give me some details. I'd like to see what's going on. On a completely different topic, we have a small leak to discuss that I think a few of you are possibly interested in. Yet before I do that, I always like to give you all a fair warning. This way you can just skip ahead by choosing a timestamp below. So if you do not want to hear exactly what's going on with the Democracy Space Station and somewhat of the storyline so far, I highly recommend that you avoid this and click on a different timestamp in the description. Okay, great, you get the idea. Let's check out the leak that was revealed by Asunder over on Helldivers 2 leaked Discord. There's a post here where Asunder wrote, "Good evening, I'm your host, Achille. The Democracy Space Station has completed its first test fire, successfully destroying a small moon. It is now ready to enter operation, staffed by over 1.5 million personnel, and costing over 1 billion super credits a day to operate. The DSS is expected to make an immediate and significant impact to the galactic war. The placement and usage of the DSS will be voted on by the Helldivers. This marks an unsuspicious milestone, the first use of managed democracy to direct a massive superweapon. Up next, reports of missing colonists are on the rise. Could adventurous comic books be to blame? Stay tuned." Well, it's incredible that Super Earth decided to test out the Democracy Space Station on a small moon. And it's also crazy to think that it costs 1 billion super credits a day just to operate the DSS. No wonder the prices have been so high as of late in the Superstore. It's all to help pay the employees' wages. Alright, continuing forward, there was a survey that was posted about maybe 2 days ago, if I remember right. Anyway, typically these surveys or feedback forms are filled out quickly, and not a lot of us are able to get our hands on the keyboard to actually fill out what we think and whatever else Arrowhead would like to ask. With that said, a member on the Helldivers 2 Discord was curious about this and asked why there is a limit, and the community manager Baskinator responded back with, "As far as I understand it, this is the biggest sample size to give us accurate data that's still able to be sorted through quickly. We do 2 separate survey drops too, one here on Discord and a separate link on Reddit. The Reddit one fills up much slower." Well, if you didn't know, I actually talked about this in a previous video. If you head over to Reddit and wait for a survey to drop, it's way easier to fill out that one instead of the Discord, basically because there's a crap ton of members on the Discord, and that's why. What I'd like to bring up next is something I have to admit. I was wrong, okay? I'm somewhat wrong. I'm still not a fan of the Dead Sprint booster, but I will say a lot of you in the last video were right about the Vitality booster as well. If you combine that one with Dead Sprint, it's actually way better. So yeah, one of the biggest things I didn't like about this booster is the fact your health would deplete so fast. And that was just, Dead Sprint by itself. Now, if you throw that on with the Vitality Enhancement booster, things are way better. Your health is drained slower, which isn't bad at all. But at the same time, I'm not going to say, I'm a big fan of this booster. I still am not. But it is a lot better to use it with the other booster I just mentioned, and you should have a better result with it, right? So try it out if you haven't done so, but I just wanted to admit it. I was wrong about it. It's way better with that. Last but not least, I do want to bring up your suggested loadouts. If you guys have one that you would like to recommend, throw it down below in the video. But if I haven't featured your comment just yet, the main reason is probably it has to do with something we've already talked about. So if you're using the crossbow, the eruptor, I most likely will not feature it because we've already went over it. So I don't want to just continuously post the same type of loadout essentially. Anyway, the loadout recommendation coming up is by Nod Rasta, and this one right here is interesting. He calls it the House Call. This loadout features the brand new SG-20 Halt that gives you two different options to choose from in terms of ammo. You can use stun rounds to stun your enemy, which I like to do often, and then I switch to the other round to just, completely decimate the enemy. And that way you have your options, right? It's really useful. The secondary is going to be the Senator, which is great on Hulks if you shoot them right in between the eyes or directly in the middle where their skull is. About 4 shots will take one out. You can also use the Senator to take out Scout Striders and all of that. We're also using the gas grenade to confuse Hulks if we need to get away, or use them on the Scout Striders. Really useful. Then moving along for stratagems, there's the orbital precision strike that was recommended. You can use this on fabricators, Hulks, Scout Striders if you like to. What I like to do is pair that up with the orbital gas strike. So I'll throw in the gas strike first, and then I'll throw in my orbital strike to take out enemies or tanks or whatever is in the way. The third stratagem on the list is the commando that can be used on fabricators. I know a lot of people are not big fans of it, but it's great to use on turrets. You can use it on tanks, you can use it on fabricators and so on, especially if you aim for the vents. And lastly, we have the guard dog, which is phenomenal to use on just about every type of bot besides Hulks and much larger enemies. It's great for crowd control and all that. Great suggestion. I'm going to give this one 4 out of 5 general brash stars because I think it's that great. It's new, it's different, and it features the new war bond, which I absolutely love. With everything being said, this is your Helldivers 2 news. We're now going to check out the top 3 comments from the previous video. If you guys would like to be featured, all you have to do is comment directly down below in the comments. The first comment is by Zane Jones 707. The dedication to earn the extra medals to unlock the plasma pistol and do test runs with it and then edit a video in like 7 hours after the war bond was launched is crazy. Much respect. And thank you to everyone, even you, Zane, for just commenting that. I truly appreciate it. I genuinely appreciate all of the support and all the comments that you guys do. I mean, really, I truly do. The second comment is by Mexican Rizla. If you use the Vitality Booster when in a group, the Dead Spray Booster cuts the health drain percentage by like 50%. And you're right, and we just went over that in today's video, and you're absolutely right, and I was wrong. Last but not least, we have Majin 13 Lu 35. This is the best color scheme we've gotten since Viper Commandos. Looks sick on the Pelican and Exosuit. Yeah, when I first purchased the Warbond, I went to the Exosuit and bought the paint immediately. Loved it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for commenting and watching the video. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button so I can save a bunch of innocent families from the Automatons and we can have a great time there. Because if you don't, I guess they're all murdered. And that's it. It's the end of the deal. So subscribe, click the red button, and turn on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video.